Hello and welcome. You're watching NDTV 24/7. I'm Sonal Mehrotra Kapoor. Jail has not broken us. Our resolve has only strengthened further. Those were the words of the student activists as they walked out of Tihar Jail after over a year. They walk out of jail 2 days after their bail order from the Delhi High Court. An order where the High Court said that act of dissent, even protests, that's not terrorism. They walked out of jail today to hugs and tears of joy. But with Delhi police challenging the order in Supreme Court, the legal battle is going to be a long one. But one they say they are not afraid of.
It's both unbelievable, it's both happiness and sorrow, because we have left behind a dear friend inside, and there are many other people inside who also deserve to be outside these gates.
Do you feel that vindicated your position? Because the Delhi High Court's judgment really in a sense a precedent for many other activists like you, where they said you can't blur the lines of our constitutionally guaranteed right to protest with terrorist activity.
I think it is a grim reminder as we celebrate this order today, as we celebrate our release. I think we should also remember all the people who are still behind bars, who are still under false charges, falsely implicated, and not just people who are dissenting or raising their voices. Of course, that is very important, what we call political prisoners. But what we have learned in our 1 year in jail is also that people who are struggling to survive every day in this nation and are put behind bars on frivolous charges are also a reality which we need to fight for.
The Delhi police have fought tooth and nail. Less than 24 hours, they were in the Supreme Court saying that your bail must be cancelled because the precedent it sets is something which will be actually lessen terror, the terror act's effectiveness. And they've also tried to fight your coming out on bail even with the Delhi court, till Delhi court actually said, how can they still be kept? Release them immediately and warrants were issued.
Well, we really thank the Delhi High Court for this wonderful order, which has also restored everyone's faith in the judiciary and which has also restored, I guess, democratic principles and the democratic rights that we have as citizens. And yeah, obviously everyone is nervous about what will happen in the Supreme Court, if we will have to go inside these walls and gates and locks again. But yeah, we are not scared of them anymore, maybe because one has seen what lies inside there, and together with everybody's support, with people who are inside there, it is something which is survivable.
And the CBSE and the ICSE formula is out, but students don't seem to be very pleased with that. Why? Well, that's got the criteria. Banks a lot on the past performances of class 10th, class 11th. That both these classes will be now, their marks will be tabulated and put together for CBSE. As far as ICSE is concerned, well, they will be looking at marks of at least 6 years. So students are now found wondering, how can your past performance determine your future?
With India's biggest school leaving exams scrapped for the pandemic this year, the CBSE and the ICSE have announced a new scheme for calculating the marks. It will entirely be based on internal assessments with no external examiners or supervision. The CBSE assessment for 12th standard is 40% marks based on class 12 pre-board mid-term unit tests, 30% marks based on class 11 final exams, 30% marks based on best of 3 class 10 marks. Practical marks will be based on actuals. The total marks will be based on past performance of the school in class 12 exams. While an estimate 14.5 lakh students will be affected by the CBSE decision, 2.2 lakh are part of the ICSE board. The ICSE assessment is the class 10 marks, project and practical work, performance in class 10, class 11 school examinations, the best performance of school in 6 years. Both CBSE and ICSE expected to declare results by the 31st of July. The assessment scheme met with mixed reactions.
Humble request, if it can be still considered, I would be very strongly advocating class 11 and 12 marks to be somewhere moderated, so the maximum benefit comes to the student. The students do surely deserve to get better marks.
I'm very skeptical about class 11 results to be included, and even if they are, the percentage, the 30% criteria that they are getting, I'm not very happy with that.
And I don't think that it's an equitable system. Like, not everyone, some might be at an advantage, some might be.
Though the court approved of the assessment scheme in principle, it wanted two issues to be incorporated in the scheme. One is a system of checking marks for those who complain, and two, the timeline for holding examinations for those who opt for it. The court will be hearing the case again on the 21st of June. With my colleague A. Vaidyanathan in New Delhi and camera person Rakesh Singh, Shonakshi Chakravarti for NDTV.
The government must announce a 3 lakh crore fiscal stimulus to boost demand in economy. That's what the industry body CII said today, adding that accelerated vaccination is the key to faster recovery. Now remember, the Confederation of Indian Industry works to create and sustain an environment conducive to development in the country, and its new president today, TV Narendran, addressing the first press conference, highlighted that government's fiscal stimulus should be up to 1.3% of the GDP.
CI is therefore calling for a fiscal stimulus of about 3 lakh crores, which is about 1.3% of the GDP, to make sure that the demand revives. And to fund this deficit, the RBI obviously will need to expand its balance sheet, as it has been doing. The accelerated vaccination is key to nurture broad-based economic recovery. Make sure most of the country is vaccinated. There is a need to have a single point person accountable in the government who everyone can deal with, who will also make sure that all the clearances that are required comes through.
A key body set up by Chief Minister Uddhav Thackeray in Maharashtra to tackle the COVID in state has now warned that a third wave could arrive earlier than expected. Sources have told NDTV that given the crowding that has been seen post the relaxation of restrictions in some parts of the state, experts now say that the case could be seen as rising numbers could come in within 2 to 4 weeks from now. The predictions were shared at a meeting chaired by the Chief Minister. All right, so that is coming in from Maharashtra, where they also said that the numbers could go up to as much as 8 lakh active cases, much worse than what the state is seeing currently, that is about 1.4 over there. But talking about unlock and its impact, let's look at Kerala next, which has begun the unlocking process today after almost 40 days of lockdown. And while tourism, malls, markets all still remain out of bounds, liquor shops opened up today, and that meant that long queues followed.
Kerala unlocking after almost 40 days of lockdown. Tourism, malls still closed. Government offices opened with up to 50% attendance and restaurants only for takeaways. Liquor outlets have opened after 50 days in areas that reported less than 20% positivity rate. Those waiting in these queues are armed with masks, some even double masks, but there is no social distancing. The unlocking will vary locally depending upon what the test positivity rate of the local self-government body is. However, as people try to regain their livelihoods, the urgency to maximize vaccinations is only getting more evident. Rajesh returned from Abu Dhabi 3 months ago and now can't go back amid restrictions for Indians. With no source of income, he has joined as Zomato delivery person in Thiruvananthapuram, the only source of income for his family of 7. Rajesh got 2 shots of COVID vaccine in Abu Dhabi, but many of his colleagues here are still awaiting their turn.
I am working in Abu Dhabi, UAE. लीव में आया था, बट वापस जाने के लिए फ्लाइट नहीं है, इसलिए 3 मंथ इधर आया हुआ, इसलिए मैं इधर काम कर रहा हूँ, जोमेटो में काम कर रहा हूँ। कितना टाइम हो गया आपको जोमेटो में काम करते हुए? जोमेटो में 2 वीक हो गया।
ഗവൺമെന്റിന്റെ ഒഫീഷ്യൽ സൈറ്റ് കോവിൻ ആപ്പ് രജിസ്റ്റർ ചെയ്തിട്ടുണ്ട്. അതിൽ ഇന്നലെ 2-3 ആഴ്ച കൊണ്ട് അല്ല കുറേ ദിവസം കൊണ്ട് ട്രൈ ചെയ്യാണ്, കിട്ടുന്നില്ല, സ്ലോട്ട് കിട്ടുന്നില്ല.
A long uphill climb ahead to revive the economy amid a pandemic. With camera person SP Babu, Sneha Koshi for NDTV.
The COVID pandemic and its associated shutdowns have increased economic distress And across the board in India, since the beginning of 2020, a 45-year-old woman and her 5 children are in a hospital in Western Uttar Pradesh's Aligarh town after battling intense hunger for over 2 months, while in Shahjahanpur, a businessman and his family died by suicide after being allegedly harassed by loan sharks over the past few months. The next report brings you more such stories.
A decent meal after battling intense hunger for over 2 months for 45-year-old Guddi and her 5 children at this Aligarh hospital, where they were admitted on Tuesday after being found at their home by an NGO in an extremely weak condition. Guddi's husband, a labourer, died last year during the COVID lockdown. Her eldest child, a 20-year-old mason, fell ill and stopped working about 2 months ago during the second wave of the pandemic.
3 महीना खटिया गोड़े है गए कच तो हम सर देखो भूकंते मरे कच बीमारी तक हो गई तो हम देखो ने का फायदा परो सर तो हम काउ के घर पे थे मतलब मांगल करे तो देखो पड़ोसी ने नो कह दे कि 1 दिन दे देंगे 2 दिन दे देंगे हम तो नहीं.
Shockingly, the family does not have a ration card or even Aadhaar cards and did not get the 5 kgs of free grain under a central food aid scheme.
पिड़दान के घरे गए पिड़दान ने नो कह दे कि हमारे पास की हमने कहा हमें 100 रुपये ही दे दे तो हम अपन ने काटो ही दिया हमें डीलर पे गए नहीं लला चावल ही दे दे हमें 5 किलो कि हमें ऐसे ना दे पाएंगे.
The local district magistrate says the family may not have tried to get the Aadhaar and ration cards made.
ये जांच का विषय हमारे पास रिपोर्ट इसकी आ गई है उनके विरुद्ध प्रधान सेक्रेटरी और जो कोटेदार है उसके विरुद्ध कार्रवाई प्रस्तावित कर रहे हैं. जांच में ये चीज आई बड़ा मतलब उसका क्योंकि गांव में राशन तो कार्ड सबका होता है ना परिवार ने कभी राशन कार्ड बनाने का प्रयास किया ना अपना आधार कार्ड बनवाया.
When asked about this, Guddi claimed that she and her family had indeed applied for a ration card and Aadhaar cards through an agent who they also paid 350 rupees. The woman claimed that this agent later refused to process her case. In Shahjahanpur, this businessman who ran a medicine business and his family, including 2 minor children, died by suicide last week, allegedly fed up with pressure from a private money lender after they had been unable to repay a massive loan taken on exorbitant rates.
के पश्चात इसको अपना किराएनामा बनवाकर एज ए किराएदार उस मकान में रखे था. अंत में अभी कुछ दिन पहले उसने एक लीगल नोटिस भी दी उसके एविक्शन के लिए मकान खाली करने के लिए. तो इन्हीं सब दिक्कतों की वजह से अवसाद में आ गया पूरा परिवार.
The lender has now been arrested. With Adnan Khan, Ankit Johar and camera person Rajesh Gupta, this is Alok Pandey, NDTV.
Moving on now, Chandni Chowk, the narrow lanes, the street side food, the wedding shopping and much more comes to mind when one thinks about the charms of the walled city, the Purani Delhi. And now those very streets are only for pedestrians. Take a look.
No vehicles from now on in Delhi's Chandni Chowk, one of India's oldest and most congested markets. This after the main road here was notified by the Delhi government as a non-motorized zone, part of the redevelopment scheme for the area that falls under Delhi's heritage zone. The market and its vicinity will now be a pedestrian-friendly zone and only battery-operated e-rickshaws and rickshaws will be permitted.
So we have reached the end of that 1.3 kilometer stretch at the Chandni Chowk market, right from the Red Fort entrance to the Fatehpuri Masjid. On your screens you can see the visuals with the help of this e-rickshaw. Like I had mentioned to you earlier that it is only e-rickshaws and rickshaws, cycle rickshaws that will now be permitted on this stretch, not any vehicles, not any motorized vehicles.
Many in the market have welcomed the decision to ban the entry of vehicles.
हमें सही लग रहा है, गाड़ियाँ उड़ी चल रही हैं, सही है, मतलब अपना काम धंधा अपना सही है. रास्ता और जो खुल गया है, ये रास्ते जो बंद हैं ये सारे खोल दिए जाएं.
पहले ज़्यादा कंजस्टेड रहती थी गाड़ी आने की वजह से. तो कोरोना काल में जी ये हुआ गाड़ी तारी बंद हो गया, ये बढ़िया हुआ, पब्लिक के लिए बढ़िया बात और सोशल डिस्टेंसिंग के लिए भी अच्छी बात. हाँ.
But some, especially senior citizens, say they are not entirely happy.
ये इमरजेंसी में अलाउ है तो इमरजेंसी में यहाँ जो पुलिस वाला है वो इस वक्त अपने आप को प्राइम मिनिस्टर से ज़्यादा समझता है। उसको आप कितना रिक्वेस्ट कर लें, उसको कितना अपना अस्पताल का कार्ड दिखा दें कि साहब मैं अस्पताल की दवा लेना है या डॉक्टर क्या जाना है, तो वो अलाउ नहीं करता।
Officials say emergency use of vehicles will still be allowed.
The busy Chandni Chowk market is known to be bustling at all times, but now this stretch of the market has been declared as a non-motorized zone which will not permit vehicles except in times of emergencies. We spoke to shopkeepers and traders and they told us that this decision has been welcomed by all, especially at a time when everybody is doing their best to follow COVID appropriate protocols. With camera person Rakesh Singh in Delhi, Shunakshi Chakrabarti for NDTV.
News coming in from West Bengal, where the Chief Minister Mamata Banerjee has filed a petition in the Calcutta High Court challenging the election of BJP Suvendu Adhikari from Nandigram. Remember that controversial election which had several twists and turns. The counting went on till later, and that case coming up tomorrow morning at 11 a.m. Munitipa is on the phone line with us for more. Munitipa, what exactly is the context?
Mamata Banerjee has basically questioned the election of Shubhendu Adhikari and cited several reasons for it. Among them, commission of corrupt practices, including bribery, promotion of hatred and enmity, seeking votes on the basis of religion and booth capture. She has also pointed out that there were discrepancies in the counting procedure, discrepancies and non-compliance in something called Form 17C. She has also questioned the decision by the Election Commission on that day, on the 2nd of May, when the votes were being counted, the decision to reject her plea for a recount when Shubhendu Adhikari was leading and then finally won with a very slim margin of about 1,600 votes. Given all these questions that she has raised, the matter is coming up for hearing tomorrow at 11 o'clock. Remember, not just her petition, but even on the day of the election, the day the results came out, there was absolute chaos about the Nandigram situation till almost midnight. First, we had Mamata Banerjee leading for about 11 rounds, and then suddenly things changed, and we had Shubhendu Adhikari leading. And, then there were complaints of how the server failed at the Nandigram counting center.
Right.
There were allegations that the power tripped over there as well. Given all that, Mamata Banerjee now seeking that Shubhendu Adhikari's election be declared null and void. Very scanty reaction coming in from the BJP so far, to this rather late night breaking news that we've had, thanks to, the list in court at the Calcutta High Court tomorrow. That's where it said Mamata Banerjee versus Shubhendu Adhikari election petition.
All right. Munitipa Banerjee, thanks so much for joining us with the very latest. You've got our eyes on that hearing as it comes up.